than just to organize a bottle of water. I'm feeling like sore throat.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, we moved it on the side. Ali, come here. Come here. Ready? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'd like to request Brother Ali Jawad to come here and begin the proceedings with the recitation of Holy Quran. Please welcome him with a loud salawat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألف لام ميم ذلك الكتاب لا ريب فيه هدى للمتقين الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون أولئك على هدى من ربهم وأولئك هم المفلحون صدق الله العلي العظيم صلى على محمد وآل محمد.
And now, without further ado, I'd like to request our respected speaker, Dr. Hasnain Walji, to please take the podium. Please welcome him with a loud salawat. And if I may request all of you who may be seated over in the back to please move forward. Thank you. Much appreciated, because the hall is very empty, so it looks more like a majlis. Let's move forward with a loud salawat, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That's fine.
Thank you. Fine. Thanks. One more just in case. Okay, thanks. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والحمد لله الذي جعلني من أمتي سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين طه وياسين أحمد محمود أبو القاسم محمد ومن المحبين عترة الطاهرين أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا تخزني يوم يبعثون يوم لا ينفع مال ولا بنون إلا ما أتى الله بقلب سليم صلوات. I begin with a continuation of the series presentation that we had yesterday in terms of looking at the issues which concern us with mental wellness. And we identified some problems, some issues yesterday. Inshallah today, with the topic at hand, which is Qalb Salim towards tranquility, will offer us a very positive way of at least being able to better understand ourselves so we can address the mental equilibrium that we all need to live a healthy, a well-balanced, and a life of fulfillment, a life of purpose, which is our theme for this Muharram. So the ayah that I recited is indeed one that Nabi Ibrahim prayed. And this is the ayah where of Surah Al-Shu'ara, ayah number 87 to 89, where he prayed to say, and disgrace me not on the day when they are raised. He's talking about the day of Qiyamah, the day on which property will not avail nor sons. All that you have in this dunya is not going to help you. This was his prayer, and it's our prayer too, that we understand, except him who comes to Allah with a heart free from evil. Qalb Salim is a term being used in the Quran, and Qalb Salim has got a very wide and a holistic meaning, and we will try and understand that today. So, on the day of judgment, the whole mankind will be in a state of loss, according to this ayah, except he who brings to Allah what we are going to be talking about today, Qalb Salim. So allow me to begin, because Qalb Salim is talking about the heart, a heart free from malice, a heart which is a free heart, a heart which is enlightened. And this is what the Blessed Prophet Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I quote, on the importance of the word heart. He said that indeed there is in the body a piece of flesh which, if it is sound, then the whole body is sound. And if it is corrupt, then the whole body is corrupt. And indeed that is the heart. So with that, keeping the heart sound and healthy, free of disease and flaws, is an important but a difficult task. Diseases of the heart And this is where mental illness and mental health issues arise, that diseases of the heart are so subtle and they creep in so quietly that we cannot even realize as to how they have crept in. And therefore, I keep saying, be very mindful of your own state, the state of your family members. And if you perceive any signs of some mental health issues, I urge you to seek help. This is not something that we push under the carpet, because in our communities, mental illness or mental health issues, as people now like to term it, but I call a spade a spade. A mental illness is a mental illness, and we need to be very clear. Then we should not stigmatize it. We should try and take care of it, just as we do with any other ailment, because it is an ailment. Quoting Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, we say, defining Qalb Salim, he says, Qalb Salim is that heart. Such a beautiful saying of Imam, that Qalb Salim is that heart which meets Allah in a state where it has only Allah and nothing else. Pure Tawheed. Everything that I do when I'm earning a living, if I'm teaching, if I'm sitting, even when I'm eating, it is that heart which has nothing but Allah in it. That is a state, that is a high state that we need to aim for, to say that it is that level of taqwa. That taqwa means God cognizance. Taqwa sometimes is misinterpreted as fear of God. Of course we should fear Allah, but more than fearing Allah, we should also be hopeful of His compassion and of His mercy. But the idea of taqwa is God cognizance, that you have Allah in your heart, and if you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart, then there are so many things that you will be saved from, just as when not bowing to an authority because you now have Allah, that He is a Razik. I'm going to speak truth to my boss because this is not right, because Allah is the Razik. That is the idea of taking a human being to his highest or her highest potential, when you think in terms of pure Tawheed and saying He is the only power, He is the Razak, He is the protector, that I have that faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that while I'll go on serving His creatures, He is going to be compassionate towards me. He is going to look after me. And therefore, Imam has said that Qalb Salim is that heart which meets Allah in a state where it has only Allah in it and nothing else. Well, today we're going to talk about Qalb Salim for tranquility as a possible solution towards many mental health issues that we have. And tomorrow we'll talk about the value proposition of insan as to having this Qalb Salim. What are the heights that one can go to as a human being? Yesterday we talked about that a human being can go from the lowest of the low, lower than the animals, if he succumbs to his worldly desires, or he can go higher than the angels if he allows his intellect and aql to control himself and not go towards nafs ammara. We'll talk about that. And inshallah we'll also talk about emotional awareness, ethical mindfulness, empathy. All these are part and parcel of what we call attaining that level of Qalb Salim, so that you become a fulfilled human being. You become a human being who is able to serve others. You become a human being who has compassion, mercy, the values that we expect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are told they adopt the akhlaq of Allah. What does that mean? That if Allah is compassionate, then I must adopt that akhlaq of being compassionate, and so on and so forth. This is another subject, I will not delve into it. And then we'll talk about society. Fulfilled insan, a fulfilled group of individuals can become a fulfilled community. A good community, which is what we are. And we can do better. We can do much better as a community. And that truly is why we have this bounty, this blessing of the majalis during these months of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, so that we are able to derive that benefit to actually uplift our own selves and at the same time uplift our community. And not only that, because Imam Hussain alayhi salam's call was not just for the Muslim community. Just as his grandfather was Rahmatul lil Alameen, he was not Rahmatul lil Muslimin, he was Rahmatul lil Alameen, that he was a mercy upon the entire world. The teachings of Imam Hussain alayhi salam are universal. The values are universal. The social justice that he talked about is universal. And this is where we as a community need to serve ourselves, our community, and humanity at large to be those exemplars of those who gave their lives in Karbala that we are here to commemorate. And then finally we'll talk about a life well lived, and also go back and summarize the message of Karbala. Transform us individually and collectively as a group. So that is the objective in the next 2 days, inshallah. That we show a practical roadmap to Qalb Salim. There is no such thing as a micro approach in doing anything. In this day and age of Twitter and 128 characters, or maybe it's a few more now, the point is, these things just don't happen within 128 characters. There is no micro approach to human development. It is a matter of continuous evolution, continuous critical thinking, and moving on the basis as to what is it that I can do better for myself by thinking. And how can I be a better person? If I make a promise to myself today that next Ashura, when I sit and do my Amal Ashura, that I promise that I will be a better person in the next 1 year. This is not a micro approach. In the next 1 year, I will try and do my best to perhaps take a few lessons, take inspiration from Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and therefore make myself a better person. In the process, I can also achieve mental health. You know, the bounty, the Blessed Prophet talked about this piece of flesh. And look at the depth and the gratitude that we must have for this organ called the heart, both physical as well as metaphysical. You know, let's go to the, excuse the pun, let's go to the heart of the matter. You know, we don't talk about any other organ. When you say you steal hearts, you win somebody's heart, you learn by heart, you have your heart in your mouth when you're afraid, you do something to your heart's content, you have heartiest congratulations, you have heartfelt condolences. There is no other organ that we name so much than the heart. But how much do we really know about this heart and how it works? Yes, I'm not talking about tennis here today. But this is the amount of pressure our heart uses every time it pulses to send blood. It's like squeezing a tennis ball. Can you imagine the amount of effort required to squeeze a tennis ball? It's the same amount of force we use to pump our blood, out to the body. It comes to the heart, it pumps it out. This is how hard it is. Ever tried squeezing a tennis ball, especially when you didn't do that good shot and you want to take it out on the ball? This is, and then about heartbeats. You know, they say missing a beat is okay. Well, in 1 year, your heart beats 35 million times. It beats over 100,000 times a day, and it will have beaten 2.5 billion times in an average lifetime. Tennis ball, 2.5 billion times in a lifetime. Can you imagine the blessing that we have from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? That we thank Him. How much can we thank Him? And this is a realization that we have. Under 1 minute, it pumps blood to virtually every body in your cell, and over the course of a day, it shuffles 2,000 gallons which are being circulated of oxygen-rich blood. These are not figures from my pocket. You can go Google it right now and you'll see what I'm talking about. And again, we come back to the word heart. So when you hear some good news, what do you experience your joy with? With your heart. When you hear some bad news, where do you feel the pain? In your heart. When you love somebody, do you love them with all your heart? When you're betrayed, don't you say that that person has broken your heart? Look at the juxtaposition and the importance of heart, and that is the reason why once the message of Allah, the Blessed Prophet ﷺ said that taqwa is here, he was pointing to his chest. Again, we go back to the original definition by Imam Jafar as-Sadiq alayhi to actually look at that it is that heart, qalb salim, is that there is nothing but Allah, and this is where taqwa is, in your heart. It's like Mullah Nasruddin once loses a pen and he starts looking for it in the bazaar. And people ask him, where did you lose your pen, Mullah? He said, I lost it at home. He said, but you lost the pen at home. Why are you looking for it here in the bazaar? He said, because there's more light here. You have lost your thing somewhere else. You're looking because of the dunya. You're looking for it somewhere else. The taqwa is inside you. It is not going to be that. It's not the dress that you wear. It's not the length of the beard that you have. It's not the length of the hijab that you have. All these things are necessary. But taqwa does not lie in how you dress. Taqwa does not lie in how you behave in the public. Taqwa is as to how you behave in your private. Taqwa is that how cognizant you are that Allah is watching me for every minute. This is the way in terms of taqwa. So we see through this that the heart actually is an intersection of the physical and the spiritual. This is where the two meet. The physical heart beating away so hard, so many billions of times in a lifetime, also has a connection that it connects you with the spiritual, and this is the beauty of this organ. There is no other organ in the body that is going to give us that. Very quickly, I do not want to take a lot of time, and I'm more than happy to share some of these slides if you're interested. Did you know that the fetal development in the heart forms and starts beating before the brain is developed? So the heart comes first, the brain comes later. A mother's brainwave can synchronize with the baby's heartbeats. This is, subhanallah, this is the wonder of creation that we never think about, that the human heart's magnetic field can be measured up to several feet away. You know, people talk about certain therapies. It is true, if there is the right kind of electromagnetic wave, the two individuals within few feet of each other can in fact do and can interact with the energy that is being exuded by the heart. These are not myths, but it needs to be a heart that is powerful, that is exuding what we call positive energy. It has a system of neurons that have both long and short-term memory, and there is so much research out there. I invite you to go and check it out. That their signals can be sent, it's also long-term. The signals can be sent out to the brain, can affect our emotional experiences, which we know. And this truly is amazing, that the heart is more active. We think the brain is active. And there is a beautiful couplet by the philosopher of the East, Allama Iqbal, when he wrote a whole poetry on aql dil, on the intellect and the heart, on the aql and the heart. And it's beautiful the way he describes it. I don't have time to go into it. Please check it out if you're interested in Urdu poetry. It's translated in English too. It's called Aql Dil. And there's a conversation that takes place between the heart and the mind to say who is better, who does what. But the heart actually sends more information to the brain than vice versa. This is the beauty of the heart. And I'll leave you with this last little piece of interest before we move on to Qalb Salim. This man had a heart transplant. Peter Houghton, many, many years ago. And in the Washington Post 2007, I read the article, and he said, my feelings have changed. I'm not able to know what I hate and what I love. I don't even have feelings towards my grandchildren. That means that the heart has memory. That memory was gone. This was somebody else's heart which was transplanted into him. Again, there is a long explanation, but this is something of interest to say that there are memory cells within the heart that it preserves. So, there is a definite heart and brain connection. Who prevails upon whom is going to be, my struggle. And if I am going to allow my heart to rule over my brain, then I become a compassionate person. If I allow my mind to rule over my heart, I become a very practical person. There are different dispositions that we have. And I'm not making a judgment. It's not good or bad. What I'm saying is people have different traits. Some are more practical, some are more emotional, and so on and so forth. So anger, frustration, anxiety, and insecurity make our heart rhythm patterns more erratic. So the idea is that it is these signals, when the heart beats faster, or it beats in an erratic fashion, these signals create the actual feelings that we experience in the heart area. You have a dry mouth, you're afraid it emerges from your heart. And the erratic heart rhythm also block out our ability to think clearly. When we get excited, when we get angry, the heart starts pumping faster, beating faster. We lose our ability to think clearly. We say things in anger that we regret, but you cannot take it back. Also, there is increased risk of heart disease because the stress hormones increase. The blood vessels constrict. The blood pressure rises. The immune system is weakened. All kinds of things. Those who are in the healthcare professional will bear me out that these are common symptoms of stress and common symptoms which begin the chronic diseases that we have. And consistent experience of this puts a strain on the heart and subsequently on the other organs. At the same time, conversely, an appreciative heart is good medicine. A heart which is a heart of gratitude is a happy human being. Heartfelt emotions like love, like care, appreciation, compassion produce a different rhythm compared to the stress rhythms, compared to the rhythms that are created through anger, through jealousy, and all the other vices that we have. Conversely, the different rhythms that are created, these are harmonious heart rhythms, which reflect our positive emotions, and they actually mean they're indicators of cardiovascular efficiency and nervous system balance. And these are the two critical things when you're trying to achieve optimal health. And I have looked at that. As a nutritionist, when we look at the balances that we need to do, we also look beyond just the food and diet and the exercise. You look at the harmony that the heart has and how a person is able to operate within a society. So, let us now go to that journey towards Qalb Salim, which is going to take a couple of lectures. So please bear with me. I will not detain you more than the time that's allocated, but inshallah we will continue with this discussion of this journey towards Qalb Salim. So, when you're taking a long flight from New York to go to Dubai or somewhere, and the announcement comes to say, sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight. This is going to be a long flight. well, sit back, relax, not so much that you go to sleep, but let us pay attention and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us a heart with which we can be compassionate. So, again, the ayah to say, disgrace me not on the day when they are raised, the day on which property will not avail nor sons, except him who comes to Allah with a heart which is at rest. Qalb Salim. A heart that is free of malice. A heart that is an other heart, and we'll go to that in a minute. But truly, if the heart is the throne of Rahman and not the abode of Shaitan, then this journey towards Qalb Salim can begin, because the dictionary translation of Salim is something that's intact, something that's whole, undamaged, complete, safe, secure. Arabic is a beautiful language. It can say so many things where English is so poor in terms of explanations that you have to use several words to try and define a concept like Salim, for example. And therefore, Qalb Salim means, to repeat, it's a heart without hatred, envy, resentment, and vengeance. Remember when Bahlul was instructing Junaid al-Baghdadi? And he said, when you go to sleep, you don't know how to sleep because you go through all these motions. He said, when you go to sleep, remove the rancor, remove the jealousy, remove the illness, and then go to sleep. That is the meaning of good sleep. A heart without hatred, envy, resentment, vengeance. Once you clear those away, once you empty that out of your heart, then you can begin your journey towards what we say, Qalb Salim. It's very interesting that the Quran uses three words. English has only one word. The Quran uses three words to talk about the heart, and each word has a meaning. It talks about the qalb, it talks about fuad, it talks about sadr. These are all translated generally in a translation as heart, but each one has a connotation. The fuad, when Quran uses the word fuad, it's a seat of your emotions. You know, fuad actually means that it's something burning, for example. And when the heart is burning, when the heart is inflamed with emotion, in the heat of the moment, as they say, it is that part of your heart which is active. It is that heart. A heart that is inflamed. And then you have another name for the heart, sadr. It actually means a chest. Could be a treasure chest. It gives you an illusion of a treasure chest. And, you know, the whole idea is that this is where Shaitan is sitting there. And as per this surah, this ayah, to say, Allazi yuwathwithu fi sudurin nas. That the one who whispers in the heart of mankind. This is a sudur that is being talked about as heart. For example, the translation here is in the hearts of mankind. But if you look at the commentary, if you look at the word of sadr, then you will know that what does the ayah really mean? This is how we understand the blessed Quran, which is in front of us, not just by way of translation, but yes, translation is good, but you need to go a little deeper. So, what is sadr? This idea is that it's like a fort. This is protecting you for shaitan entering it. And your eyes, your tongues, your ears, your hands are all the gates into this sudur. So if you allow your eyes, if you allow your ears, your hands, and all these are all gates for shaitan to enter, or you use his organs not to allow shaitan to enter. That is up to you. Because shaitan is always waiting outside this force and is trying to get in. But shaitan has no access to our qalb. It does have access to our sadr. Shaitan cannot enter our qalb, but it can enter that level, that fort, and it is us who let the gates open, not shaitan. For those of you who enjoy the Urdu language, I normally don't in English lectures, but this couplet is so relevant, and I'll translate that into English. It says, हंसी आती है हमें हजरत इंसान पर, फेले बद खुद करे लादत करे शैतान पर. That it is truly amazing as to how the human being gives excuses and conjures up this imagination, हंसी आती है हमें हजरत इंसान पर, फेले बद, meaning that he commits a sin, फेले बद खुद करे लानत करे शैतान पर. Shaitan made me do it. I did something bad. I allowed shaitan to get into my sadr, through my ear, through my mouth, whatever it is, and say, well, shaitan made me do it. Well, why did you allow shaitan to enter in the first place? Because Allah has given you that ability to be able to stop shaitan from coming in. And therefore, do not blame shaitan. Blame yourself if you allow. This is shaitan's job. The job of my sadr is to protect me like a fort, and that I will not allow those gates. And finally we come to the root word of qalb. Qalaba means to rotate. The only thing that rotates instinctively round its creator is your qalb, your inner heart. That is something that where we learn that this ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd to say, now surely by Allah's remembrance are the hearts set at ease. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innal qulub. This is the secret of Qalb Salim. To be able to have that heart which instinctively is rotating around the Creator, that you do not spoil that energy, you do not ruin that momentum as that qalb is rotating by having other things come into it. Imam Muhammad Baqir Islam has said, and I quote, he talks about 4 kinds of hearts. And inshallah I will end on this note and we will continue tomorrow with more on Qalb Salim. That there is one kind of a heart that has both faith and hypocrisy in it. So it's combined. Sometimes, the people are faithful, and then you sometimes take a slight tangent, a slight diversion. So it says it's a heart that has both faith and hypocrisy in it. Then there is a heart, Imam says, which is inverted and upside down, and I'll explain each one of these. And then there is that heart which is sealed and darkened. It's a dark heart. And then there is a heart that is clear and luminous. That's the azhar. So there are 4 kinds of heart. So which is this, hypocrisy and faith? This heart is neither fully healthy nor completely dead. It's there in between. But it has signs of hardness in it because of the sins and the hypocrisy that you have, which is now creating those spots in the heart. And adding more sins without repenting continues to add those dark spots so that the luminous heart becomes darker and darker and darker and goes to another phase. Maulana Rum has a beautiful way of describing this, where he was talking about the small sins and the large sins. Gunah Sagira, Gunah Kabira. And he said, be careful of your Gunah Sagira, these small sins. Because he compares it to a bramble bush. Fortunately, in New York, you don't have bramble bushes. We do in Texas. These are thorny bushes in a very dry place, which grow with very little water, but they grow very fast. Once you plant them, they grow, they make good hedges to not to allow animals in. So Maulana Rum says that if a small sin is like a small bramble bush that's been planted, as it grows, it may, be in your way, but you can pluck it out. If you allow it to grow even higher, you'll take a lot more force to pluck it out. And if you allow it to grow even higher, one day it will stop your path, because now you won't be able to take it out. So this is the bramble bush of that small sin that you did, which keeps growing and growing, and therefore this heart, which was half and half maybe of hypocrisy and faith, now has majority of hypocrisy and very little faith. And then Imam talks about a heart which is upside down. It perceives things inverted. You know, we have people who always take the wrong meaning. They always go on the negative side. There's always uncertainty. In this case, Imam was referring to an inverted upside down heart where the dunya, the world, is much more important than the hereafter. This is what the heart craves for. The heart continually craves for dunya. The heart continually craves for the lust of this world. Now, one needs to clarify, and inshallah I will in the days to come, that dunya per se is something different when we think of it, and worldly affairs are something else. So let us not kind of get confused. I'll park it here. We will come to that explanation. But here, the dunya is more important than the hereafter. And then number 3, you have a sealed and a darkened heart. It is a heart that has rejected the truth after that truth has reached the heart. You have received the message of spirituality, you have rejected it. You have rejected natural laws of the greater good, for example. The natural laws of the golden rule. Do unto others what you want others to do to you. All these values, the natural laws, that heart rejects. Well, this heart is incapable of benefiting from the remembrance of Allah. You may do 100 tasbihs, but if it is darkened and sealed, then nothing is penetrating. Of course, He is Ghafurur Rahim, and you say astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, particularly on those days of Amal, maybe Allah will listen and He will give you that istighfar, because He is Ghafurur Rahim. It is Gunah Kabira to despair of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, there was this man who was doing the rosary, and he was an idol worshipper. So he was doing his rosary, his tasbih, saying, Ya Sanam, Ya Sanam, Ya Sanam, Ya Sanam, Ya Sanam. By mistake, he said, Ya Samad. By mistake, the word came out, Ya Samad. And the answer came, Labbaik. Ya Samad. The angel said, but he's an idol worshipper. He was saying, Sanam, 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 Sanam. The word Samad suddenly just came out of his tongue without him thinking. And the answer comes to say that if the Sanam doesn't answer, the Samad must answer. There is a difference between the Sanam and the Sanam. This is the compassion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this heart is incapable of compassion for his fellow creatures. And lastly, it is the heart which is clear and luminous. It's the likeness of a lamp. It's of a believer who is thankful when Allah gives and patient when subjected to tribulations. We went through the COVID era. All of us had to change our lifestyles. All of us had to go so much. And those who survived this intact were those who were patient when subjected to tribulation. It is said that we have so much mental health issues after COVID, and it is true. But if there was that clear and luminous hearts of saying thankful when Allah gives, and then be patient when we are subjected to tribulation, is a heart that is clear and luminous. And that is what I ended with. The beautiful Hadith Qudsi, to say that the heavens and the earth cannot contain me. The heavens and the earth cannot contain me, but the heart of a moment holds me. Look at the value proposition of insan as to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. Inshallah, we have a long way to go. We're going to be talking about the roadblocks to that journey, the conflict between what we want to do and what we feel is practical, our mind and our heart. I wish is in the heart, I know I cannot is in the mind, and the mind will say, I will only have this much food. You know, we're rationing, we're fighting for toilet paper, for God's sake. You know, I only have so much food, and I'm not going to share it. That's a mind. And the heart says, no, Allah will send my risk, I'm going to share it with the hungry. There is a practical manifestation in terms of what we can do. So inshallah, tomorrow we will talk about those roadblocks in the journey of Qalb Salim. Please stay with us tomorrow and we will continue this journey. Please say a loud salawat. Well, tonight there was another journey that begins by a friend of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. You know, there was only one person, it is said in history, that Imam Hussain actually called to come to Karbala. And this was none other than his childhood friend Habib ibn Mazahir. Imam writes a letter to Habib ibn Mazahir telling him how Yazid and his vultures were gathering to kill him. And this letter was carried by a messenger who enters Kufa in the dark by climbing over the city walls because nobody was supposed to enter where Hussein could be helped. The messenger reaches Habib's house and Habib opens the letter, and I just want to read to you 2 paragraphs from the letter. You know, firstly, the letter was addressed from the son of Ali to Habib ibn Mazahir, a scholar and a jurist. This is who he was. And the letter read in part to say, "Oh Habib, you are aware of my relation to the Messenger of Allah and know me better than others. You are a man of integrity and a free man. Don't hold yourself back from coming to my assistance. May the Messenger of Allah reward you on the Day of Judgment." It was a longer letter. I'm just reading a couple of poignant paragraphs. So that when we understand, when we hear the Masahib, we must hear the Masahib in the correct order, correctly as it was narrated. You know, there is history and there is a narration of history. Sometimes the two are not aligned as to what history did, what happened, and sometimes how history is narrated. It all depends who narrates the history. Today, in the US, there are many where history is being reframed, it is being rewritten. Our children go to this and they go to history class. There is very little of real history in those textbooks. This is all sanitized, whitewashed history that we learn. But that's another thing. When Habib reads the letter, he kisses the letter and tears begin to flow down his cheeks. And his wife, looking at his temperament, says, "Oh Habib, what is wrong?" And Habib says, and I quote his actual words, I do not want to paraphrase. His actual words were that who would ever thought that people would be so thirsty for the blood of the grandson of the Holy Prophet, whose name they utter in every adhan and every salah. This is a scholar reminding people of their responsibility as to what they are doing. Meanwhile, in Karbala, as people were preparing for war, Imam Hussain al-Islam was dividing the weapons between different people. He was distributing those weapons to all the mujahids. There was one spear left on the side. And somebody asked, "Yabna Rasulillah, who is that last spear for? And Imam says, the one who will hold it is on his way. Habib is coming. And when Habib comes, when Habib arrives in Karbala, there was so much joy, there was so much encouragement that Habib has come. And Habib says, and I quote again, these were his words. And he said, even though, looking at Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he says, even though I have become old and feeble, whenever I look at you, youth begins to flow in my veins once again. As we know, Habib ibn Mazahir was a childhood friend of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And many a times, the Blessed Prophet patted his hand and they said, why do you show such compassion towards Habib? He said, one day, this Habib is going to go and help my Hussain. The moment had come. And Bibi Zainab salamullahi alayha asked when she hears the voices coming from the tents, from the men's tents, and he said, who is that? And when they said, Habib ibn Mazahir, Bibi Zainab says, offer him my salutations. This was the respect of the lady that Habib ibn Mazahir had. He was shaken to grief when he hears that salam from Bibi Zainab and says, the sorrow of this loss, that today, who is this Habib for Lady Zainab to offer her salutations? This was the sentiment. Mu'mineen, to finish, that as the Zohar time comes of Ashur, Habib ibn Mazahir comes to Imam Hussain and said, my master, allow me to go to the battlefield, let me sacrifice my life. And Imam says, oh Habib, you are my childhood friend, stay with me, you give me comfort. Oh my friend, Habib persists. And eventually, the inevitable, as Imam Hussain mounts his friend Habib on the horse, Habib rides into the battlefield, fights bravely, and he finally gives his life. Imam rushes towards him. Habib looked at Imam and said, oh grandson of the Holy Prophet, please forgive this humble servant for not being able to give more than his unworthy life for you. And Imam takes Habib in his arms and cries, oh my friend, oh my friend. And as he was addressing Habib, Habib dies, resting his head on Imam's shoulder. Mu'mineen, just a couple of words. It is said that when the caravan of the prisoners reached Kufa, a soldier from Yazid's army who was holding the head of Habib ibn Mazahir around keeps seeing this young boy following him wherever he goes. And he asks this young man, what do you want? And Qasim, Habib's young son, just looks at the head and says, that is the head of my father, Habib ibn Mazahir. Please give it to me so that I can bury my father. Habib's head seemed to look at his son, and perhaps it may have said, oh my son Qasim, you are thinking of burying my head? What about the head of Imam Hussain on that spearhead? Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. May Allah accept our efforts during this azan. May He give us inspiration to learn from the story of Karbala, to learn the lessons to better ourselves. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yeah. السلام عليك يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا حبيب الله. السلام عليك يا خيرة من خلق الله ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين. السلام عليك يا سيد الوصيين. السلام عليك يا إمام المتقين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا خديجة الكبرى. السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي المجتبى. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله حسين بن علي بشهيد كربلاء. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك وعلى أخيك بالفضل العباس وعلى أختك الحوراء زينب وعلى 9 المعصومين بذرية الحسين. السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الباقر. السلام عليك يا جعفر بن محمد الصادق. السلام عليك يا موسى بن جعفر الكاظم. السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي التقي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي النقي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي الأسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة بن الحسن يا قائم المرتضى المهدي يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كامة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. السلام عليكم أهل البيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.